Hello and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to watch this demonstration. My name is Samantha Garrett and I'm one of the product specialists here at Pegasus Software. Towards the end of October, most of you will be aware that we ran a series of partner roadshows across the UK. These were approximately 3-hour sessions where we covered the Opera 3 roadmap. We then moved on to RTI and auto-enrolment, sales and marketing, but we also took the partners through the 170 release of Opera 3 from a sales perspective to show them the enhancements that had gone into this release. So for those of you that were unable to attend the roadshows, we thought it would be beneficial for us to record that side of the presentation so that we could share it with you. So the 170 release was signed off at the end of October and has now been shipped out to partners. Included in this release was the brand new Credit Management Centre, a new historical stock valuation report, some email enhancements that went into invoicing, SOP processing and also repeat invoicing, and we also added in some additional sales ledger reports to the Output to Excel list. There was also a selection of CRM enhancements that went into that release as well. So I'm delighted to be able to firstly introduce you to a brand new application, which is the Credit Management Centre, and then we'll look at some of the other enhancements that went into this release. I'm sure that most of you would agree with me that there has been room for improvement with the previous tools and utilities that we've provided for credit control. Cash is the lifeblood of businesses, and a good cash flow is crucial to running a successful business. We need to have the right processes in place to collect the cash, which is key to ensuring that there is enough cash in the bank. So the better the tools that we provide for credit control, the bigger the return on investment our customers are going to gain from Opera 3. So what's it all about, what does it do, and who does it benefit? The Credit Management Centre has been designed to provide credit controllers and other staff members involved in debt management with one centralised tool that consolidates all of the information that they need to help reduce bad debts, improve their cash flow, which in turn helps to improve the overall financial position of the business. But enough of the talking, let's go straight into the product. As you can see, we have a new icon next to sales processing called Credit Management. And just in case you haven't picked up on it yet, the only prerequisite is the Opera 3 sales ledger. So at the moment, the Credit Management Centre comes bundled in free of charge with the Opera 3 sales ledger. Now that won't be the case forever. Towards February 2013, we will start charging for this application, but at the moment, it is free of charge. The Credit Management Centre provides a series of easy-to-use dashboards presented at 3 different levels. So we have a company level, the accounts and transaction level, and then we also have the diary view there as well. The Company tab provides an overview of the financial position of our business, so in particular showing us where our money is. This is where, as a financial director or credit control manager, we can keep an eye on what's happening. Now, of course, this tab can be restricted to only allow the relevant personnel access, but we'll come on to that a little bit later on. As you can see, most of the key information is displayed graphically. So up at the top, we can see the total invoice debt. This includes any overdue cash to be collected and invoices that are not yet due for payment, as well as any overdue disputed amounts and also any disputed amounts that are not yet due for payment. If we hover over an area of the charts, you can see there that we have currently just under £109,000 that are overdue. Okay, show us who owes us this cash. A quick double click allows us to drill down into the detail. Moving through the arrows, next we can see we have a summary of the aged invoice debt, which segments out the current month, 1 month old, 2 months old, and then over 3 months old. And again, at any point, if I want to drill down into any of this information, a simple double click will drill down into the detail. Cycling through the arrows, next we have our company turnover for the last 12 months. And again, show me which accounts this has been generated from. A quick double click allows us to drill down into the details. Moving over, next we can see that we have our customer debt, which instantly shows us who's got our cash ordered by who owes us the most. So this again includes any overdue cash to be collected and a cash that's not yet due for payment, but it also includes any unallocated amounts as well. So this gives us a clearer picture of what cash we've already received, which allows us to focus our attention on those accounts that will make the biggest difference to our bank balance. As we move through the page numbers, you can see it displays in cycles of 5, which keeps it clean and easy for us to read. And let's say that I wanted to pick on Adams Light Engineering. We can see that they owe us just over £16,500 there. Okay, show me those invoices. A double click allows us to drill down into the detail, this time drilling down into the account view, but it's restricted it to only show us those overdue invoices. And just to show you that we are actually within the account view, if we pop into the action menu, you can see the options that we have available to us. And by the same token, if I wanted to have a look at the disputed invoices that this company currently owes us, I could simply double click to drill down, but again, notice that it restricts it to only show us those disputed invoices. We have clear visibility of any disputed invoices and outstanding actions, which gives us a clearer picture of any issues that may need to be resolved before any cash will be received. It also gives us a good indication into how our credit control team is performing, and it allows us to be proactive to ensure that any imperative issues are flagged up. Down towards the bottom, we have our financial ratios, which include our company average debtor and creditor days, and we also have our invoice summary there, which firstly shows us the number of overdue invoices and also the number of disputed invoices. We have a further detailed breakdown by period of our company debtor analysis, but I think more importantly and key to any credit management system is how much cash has been promised to us. So here we can see a summary of any promised payments that have been promised to us today, over the next 1 to 30 days, 31 to 60 days, and also any promised payments that have been promised to us in over 60 days as well. We can also see those promised payments that are now overdue. Now, we will come back onto the action menu a little bit later on, but I thought it might be worth me pointing out to you that within the charts menu, firstly, we have the ability to copy any of the charts here and paste them into Word or Excel, and we can also print them directly from here as well. So similar to the functionality that we offer in other areas of Opera 3. But we also have the ability to choose to export any of the data that make up these charts directly out to Excel as well. So this is on top of your standard output to Excel functionality, and also in addition to some new reports that are relating to the Credit Management Centre that we'll come on to a little bit later on. Moving on into the Accounts and Transactions tab. This is where we as individual credit controllers can work to chase our customers for money owed. Up at the top lists the accounts that we are currently chasing. So here we can see all of the key information that we require, including their balance, their overdue amount, any disputed amounts, any promised payments, but we can also see any unallocated amounts as well. So this ensures that we're not chasing customers for payment when actually they have sent us the cheque. It's just down to the fact that we haven't had a chance to go through and allocate it yet. And of course, this information is displayed in a standard Opera 3 active grid, so we can sort by either one of the columns. But of course, we give you the ability to allow you to sort and group your debtors a lot more than that. We haven't spoken about too much of the setup yet. However, within the drop down that I'm looking at here, you can see that we have the ability to filter, create and organise our customers into what we call user-definable credit management groups. So as an example, I've set up a high risk group, a medium risk group and a low risk group. So you might want to create groups and organise your customers into those groups based on perhaps whether they usually pay their invoices on time or not. It's completely down to the individual user. These aren't mandatory, but it does make it a lot easier for us to work through the group of debtors that we want to focus on at any one point in time. So I'm going to say I'd like to work on my high risk group today. In addition, obviously we may want to only include those overdue accounts, and from the action menu we can pick up the overdue filter, which will allow us to enter in a minimum order value. This can be particularly useful for filtering out those accounts with the low unpaid values that might not be worth us focusing our attention on right now. And you'll also notice that we can enter in an oldest due date there as well. In addition to only looking at overdue, perhaps we want to look at those that are also over their credit limit as well. Or as a credit control manager, we might want to view all accounts. Now, as we select a particular account, you'll see that all of the information on this dashboard filters for that specific account. So here we can see the general financial status of the company. We can also see any contact details, and we can also access additional information such as the account contacts too. Very similar to the company tab, but this time specific to the account that we're highlighting, we can see the total invoice debt. Again, we have the ability to drill down into the overdue invoices, in this case for Adams Light Engineering. But key to credit control, I need to be able to see the history of the account as well. So if I double click into the background of the chart, you can see that it drills down into the account view, but this time showing us all transactions. And again, very similar to the company tab, we can cycle through to a summary of the aged invoice debt, the customer turnover for this particular company, and we also have an additional chart here as well. So here we can see graphically any promised payments that Adams have promised to us that range from overdue to due in over 60 days. In towards the middle, we can see any actions that have been set up and recorded against the account, and these may also include any promised payments as well. Now, these customer actions can be set to either include or exclude completed actions, and that can be set within the action menu itself. So while we're working through our list of debtors and phoning customers and trying to resolve any issues and get them to pay their invoices, it's essential for us to be able to manage and control the account. So I might need to be able to put an account on stop. I might also want to be able to revise a credit limit, and I may also want to reorganise my customers into different credit management groups. So we can do all of that from within the Credit Management Centre itself. So as an example, let's pick up on a few accounts. So I'm just ticking the top 2 accounts there. We're going to go into action and we're going to pick up credit control. So you'll notice within here I can choose to put any accounts on or off stop. So I'm going to pop these 2 accounts on stop. I can choose to revise their credit limit either by a fixed value, a percentage change, or a value change. So I'm going to say, as an example, I'm going to reduce both of their credit limits by £1,000. And I'm also going to say that I'd like to move them from my high risk group down to my medium risk group. So we'll say OK. So firstly, we get an audit trail of the changes that we are about to make to these accounts, because remember, you might be about to change a lot of accounts at the same time. As we close it down, would you like to update the selected accounts? I'm going to say yes. And there you can see that firstly, those 2 accounts no longer sit within my high risk group, but they have been moved to my medium risk group. They've both been put on stop, and they've also had their credit limit reduced by £1,000. So we've done all of that from within the Credit Management Centre itself, but of course, if we really wanted to, then we could very happily access their account record directly from here as well. Now we can drill down even further into an account to the Transactions tab. So here we can see all of the overdue invoices. For this example, we're looking at Adams Light Engineering. And of course, we can double click to drill down into a PDF image of the invoice from here as well. So what's the benefit of working at the transaction level? Well as also being able to record actions against a specific invoice, we can also record promised payments against a particular invoice as well. So here we can see we have an overdue invoice for £831.60, and we also have a promised payment for the full amount that they promised to pay us by the end of April. So let's come away from the Credit Management Centre, and let's say that Janice in accounts has received a cheque from Adams Light Engineering. She doesn't work too closely with the credit control team, but she comes through and she enters in the receipt, the cheque that she's received for £831.60. She goes through and she allocates it against the invoice and she posts it through. So if we now go back into the Credit Management Centre and back to Adam's account, firstly, as we would expect, you can see that that invoice is no longer outstanding. We can also see that the promised payment that was set against that invoice is also no longer visible, and that's because it's been automatically completed by the system for us. So just to show you that, let's pick up on one of the new reports, which is called the Diary Actions report, and we'll filter it purely for Adam's account. We'll leave the date range blank and we'll ask it to include any completed actions. And as we send that through to screen, you can see that there is the promised payment, in fact £831.60, and just to show you that it has been automatically completed by the system. So rather than us having to go in and complete that ourselves, the system has done it all for us. Now, whilst we're working through Adam's account, let's say that we phoned Gordon at Adams Light Engineering. We've been discussing these invoices with him. And this first invoice, he wasn't actually happy with the delivery. So he's got a complaint pending with his account manager. The first thing I want to do is mark this invoice as disputed. So I'm going to tick the invoice in question. We're going to go into action, and again we're going to pick up credit control. I'm going to mark this invoice as in dispute, and I'm going to say that we've got a complaint pending. So again, firstly we get the audit report showing us the change that we are about to make. Close it down. Would we like to update the invoice? I'm going to say yes, and there we can see that that invoice has now been marked as disputed. So we can do that for either individual invoices or we can do it in bulk. So let's say that he was very happy with the delivery on this invoice, and he's promised to pay us almost the full amount of the invoice by the end of the month. So let's go through and record a new diary action to record that promised payment. Diary actions could be about anything from a phone call out to recording a promised payment. And the list of action types that I'm selecting from here are hard-coded into the system. However, you can build upon that list within Sales Maintenance, so you can customize it and add in your own action types. So in this example, let's say that it was a phone call out. I'm going to assign it to myself as I'm logged in as the manager. We'll say that it's Gordon that we're talking to on the phone, and I'm going to pop in today's date as the action date. For auditing purposes and analysis purposes, let's just pop in a start and end time there, because we have been on the phone to Gordon for quite some time. And I'm going to say the outcome of this conversation is that he's promised to pay us, let's say £6,000, so almost the full amount, and he's promised to pay us by the end of the month. So let's just pop in a note, so we'll say promised amount, and we'll mark it for follow-up, let's say the day before he's due to pay it. And if I tick this alarm tick box, what that's going to do is use Opera 3's notification services to send a message to us to remind us. And let's save it away. So everything that we've been looking at so far is great, but imperative to credit control, we need to ensure that we know what needs to be chased and when. So that's where your diary tab comes in. The diary view displays a list of all actions that are due to be done, so we can filter by the days that we're looking at. And depending on how you've set the system up for each individual user, you can define whether they're restricted to only viewing their own actions, or if indeed they are allowed to view other users' actions as well. And if we double click into a particular action, it takes us to the relevant place within the Credit Management Centre for us to then go through, update and complete that outstanding action. So let's move on to looking at some of the reporting side of things that have gone into the Credit Management Centre. We did look at one of the new reports earlier on. However, within the action menu, you'll notice that we've strategically placed and grouped most of your credit management related reports into the action menu for ease of use and access. So within here, we can see that we've got our print debtors letters, we've got our statements, we've got the new diary actions report that we looked at earlier on, but we've also got a brand new promised payments report there as well. This report displays all of the promised payments that have been promised to us by our customers, and you'll also notice that both of those new reports can also be sent directly out to Excel. Now, the reporting enhancements don't just stop there. If we close that down And let's have a quick look at the sales ledger. I'm sure that you'll agree with me that as the sales ledger has significantly started to grow recently and the reports menu was starting to get very long, we felt it necessary to split the reports menu down into two different categories. So firstly, you've got a reports menu which lists all of your other sales ledger related type reports, and you've also got a debtors reports menu within there as well, which has grouped all of your debtor related reports, including those new credit management diary action and promise payments report. But you'll also notice that within here we've got a new credit management groups, action types and outcome types report available as well. Now, I know we haven't had too much time to talk about the setup, but I did promise that I'd come back onto this a little bit earlier on. I'm just going to pop over into user profiles and show you the two new options that have gone into here. So this is where you can say that yes, this user has access to that company details tab that we looked at the start of this section. And we can also define here whether yes, this user has access to view other users' actions as well. Now, hopefully that's given you a good overview of the Credit Management Centre and what it's all about. And I'm sure that you'll agree with me that now we can provide our own integrated credit management solution. So again, it gives us another USP over some of our competitors who at the moment have to hook into separate applications to provide this level of functionality. Okay, let's round off on the sales side before we move over into stock. Now we've got a few smaller enhancements to cover off with you, but I'm sure you will agree with me, very useful changes into Opera 3. Since the first release of Opera 3, we've seen the selection of reports that have been available to output to Excel significantly grow. We've seen the output to Excel be added into the report manager. We saw 2 new retrospective reports be added into sales and purchase, both of which were also available to output to Excel. And then within the 1.5 release, we also saw many of the outstanding nominal ledger reports also be added into that list. So I'm pleased to say within the 170 release, many of the outstanding sales ledger reports are now also available to be output to Excel. So let's just run you through which of the reports are new and added to the output to Excel list. Within your reports menu, you can now export your turnover report, your gains and losses, and your currency revaluation. And within the debtors reports menu, you now have the ability to export your disputed invoices, your credit control, but I think more importantly, that revenue forecast report. I've had many customers that have asked me over the last 18 months or so for this report to be added into the output to Excel list, so I'm pleased to say that that is there within this release of Opera 3. Okay, moving over into invoicing and SOP. Again, a very small change into the system, but I'm sure you'll agree with me that this is going to make users' lives a lot easier. I'm sure that most of you will be aware that if you use invoicing or SOP processing and to email an invoice out to a customer, that it is quite a manual and tedious process. We did add in some additional email profiles which allowed us to email many of the documents within the sales cycle when using batch processing. However, those email profiles didn't integrate completely with other areas within the system that users would want to email invoices from. So I'm pleased to say that that's no longer the case. If you use invoicing or SOP processing to pop on a new invoice to a customer that has been set up to receive invoices via email, it will now default to the email spooler and automatically complete all of the relevant information in for us. So no longer do we have to go through and add all of this in manually, and that works exactly the same for repeat invoicing for contract documents that you may want to email only as well. So again, a very small change to the system, but I'm sure you'll agree that it will please a lot of our users when it comes to utilising the email functionality within Opera 3. Okay, so let's leave that there. And let's go over into stock and let's have a look at our new historical stock valuation report. So what is it? Why have we done it? What does it do? And probably the question on all of your minds right now is, why have we called it historical instead of retrospective? Well, this new report allows us to view the value of our stock items as at a date in the past. We've been asked for and developed this report, if you like, as the next stage in the open period accounting functionality, because we saw the introduction of the retrospective debtors and creditors report. We then saw the introduction of the nominal ledger posting period within many of the other associated reports. So this report was the next one on the list. So it's the same as retrospective debtors and creditors, right? Not entirely. The retrospective debtors and creditors reports used existing data that already existed within the STRAN and PTRAN tables within the database itself. So that meant that we could happily run either one of those reports straight away without needing to make any changes under the bonnet. However, the development of a retrospective stock valuation report wasn't quite as straightforward as that. Because of the way that Opera 3 has always worked, the existing CTRAN table didn't store the necessary information that we needed to allow us to run this report straight away, thus meaning that we have had to make some changes under the bonnet. So, from version 170 onwards, we've introduced a new table called chval into the database. Once 170 has been installed, you will need to initialize that new table, and from that date forward it will then start to store and collate all the necessary movements that it needs to allow us to run this report. So 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, it will be retrospective if you like, but because of the mechanical difference we felt it necessary to name the report more appropriately. So let's have a look at firstly initializing that new table. So we've installed 170, we're going to go into utilities and we're going to pick up the new initialised historical stock valuation. Now if you're multi-company, then yes, you will need to run this through on each of your companies that you want to use the historical stock valuation in. So we've initialised the new table. From this date forward, and my system date being the 8th of August 2010, it will start to record the stock movements that it needs to allow us to run that historical stock valuation report. So let's have a look at how that works. And I thought the best way to show you this was to create a new stock item, which at the moment has no items in stock. So let's do a new receipt directly into stock as at the 8th of August. And let's say that we're going to receipt in 50 items into stock. Now let's roll the system date forward to, let's say, the 8th of September 2010. And let's repeat that process. So we'll find our stock item, and this time we'll go through and we'll receipt in, let's say, a further 50 of these items into stock, which brings our in-stock figure up to 100 as at today, which is the 8th of September. Now let's have a look at our historical stock valuation report. Very similar to the retrospective debtors and creditors report, you'll notice that we have a new field, produce report as at. So we can still use this report to run the report as at today. So let's firstly just filter purely for our stock item, so it's a bit easier for us to see. And we're going to run the report as at our current system date as at the 8th of September. And let's send that through to screen. So as we know, and as we would expect, as at the 8th of September, we currently have 100 items in stock. Now let's go back and rerun our historical stock valuation report. So again, we'll filter it purely just for our stock item, and we're going to run it as it was at the 8th of August 2010. Notice that this report can also be output directly to Excel. I'm just going to send it through to screen. And as we would expect, as at the 8th of August 2010, we can see that the in-stock figure sits at 50. Now, the development of this report was actually carried out some time ago, and it was tested in the 150 release of Opera 3. However, because of the changes that we had to make under the bonnet, we felt it necessary to only release this report to those third-party communities to allow them to understand the changes and do any investigations into if this would have had any impact on those customers that had bespoke around this area. But I'm sure you will agree it does start to complete off the open period accounting functionality that we have within Opera 3, and it is going to be a very valuable tool to any of those users that are using open period accounting, especially at period end or year end times for auditing purposes. So that concluded the demonstration of Opera 3 170 that we ran at the roadshows a few weeks ago now. I hope that's given you a good idea as to what's gone into 170, and hopefully it's given you a good understanding to help you get up to speed and learn the new enhancements that have gone into the system. Thank you for taking the time to watch this short video. For further information, you could always check out the training videos that will go through these enhancements in quite a bit more detail than I've had a chance to today. You'll also find the release guide that sits within the system itself very useful, as well as the help system which sits within Opera 3 as well.